her Commonwealth Day message.
With the approach of my 60th birthday this year, I have been reflecting on the changes which have taken place in the Commonwealth during the 34 years in which I have been its head. I have now visited all the independent countries of the Commonwealth, and I have watched and welcomed its growth into a group of 49 nations spread over every continent and ocean, and containing a quarter of the world's population.
It's just after dawn on the tiny Caribbean island of St. Lucia. With a distinctly casual air, St. Lucians are tidying up the capital to receive their queen. Today, the royal yacht Britannia is the symbol of the one department in which British monarchical diplomacy has remained preeminent. That department, to the astonishment of the modern world of international politics, is the Commonwealth.
Let's go on both entrances.
After Britannia docks, the red carpet is rolled out for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories, Queen, head of the Commonwealth. It might appear incongruous in the 1980s that the people of an impoverished tropical island should profess their loyalty and their love for an English queen. St. Lucia was a British colony, but no longer. Today, its people have little in common with contemporary Britain. But the Queen went to St. Lucia in 1985 and to 9 other Caribbean countries as the head of the most extraordinary family of nations the world has ever known. The Commonwealth is a voluntary association based on the principles of partnership and equality, across all barriers of distance, wealth and culture, and embodying a quarter of the world, over 1 billion people in 49 independent countries. It's sustained and nourished by the profound interest of the Queen. Its size is matched only by its diversity.
I greatly appreciate the Prime Minister's expression of your loyalty, the address of welcome from the President of the Senate and the Speaker, and the wonderful reception given to us by the people of St. Lucia. The Commonwealth family contains many different cultures and races who are constantly consulting and cooperating with each other. and it represents one of the more encouraging achievements of mankind.
Nearly 40 years before this visit to St. Lucia, where the patois songs and dances recall the island's former French connection, the Queen, on the threshold of her tremendous destiny, and on the occasion of her 21st birthday, broadcast to the world her dedication to the Commonwealth ideal.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong. But I shall not have strength to carry out this resolution alone, unless you join in it with me, as I now invite you to do. I know that your support will be unfailingly given. God help me to make good my vow, and God bless all of you who are willing to share in it.
Princess Elizabeth was with her father at the 1949 Commonwealth meeting. 2 years before, Indian independence had been achieved after years of political struggle. To assert its integrity as a new nation, India decided to cut its links with the Crown and to become a republic. But it chose to stay in the Commonwealth and to acknowledge the King as its symbolic head, changing irrevocably that once exclusive club of white dominions.
Here is Ceylon Senadayeki, Lester Pearson from Canada, Lakayat Ali Khan, Pakistan. Next to Mr. Attlee, Australia's Joseph Chifley, Dr. Mallon from South Africa, New Zealand's Peter Fraser, and India's Pandit Nehru. They meet to bring the unwritten constitution of the Commonwealth into line with modern concepts. Their decisions can show the world that 400 million people of many races, colors, and religions can live united in one family.
2 years later, the King was dead, and Elizabeth II was crowned Queen of Great Britain, assuming at the same time the role of head of the Commonwealth.
Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the Union of South Africa, Pakistan, and Ceylon, and of your possessions and the other territories to any of them belonging or pertaining, according to their respective laws and customs.
I solemnly promise so to do.
So seriously did she take that responsibility that very shortly after the coronation parades in London, the Queen undertook a tour without precedent in the history of the British monarchy. She became the first ruler to circumnavigate the globe, never once setting foot on any territory which was not part of the Commonwealth. Now, for the first time on television, the Queen looks back on that historic Commonwealth tour.
It's interesting to see the arrival in Fiji when one is this marvelous child who appears and does this very grave obeisance. First time one is very surprised by this, but it becomes, as one goes back to Fiji, it becomes quite a normal thing that happens to these small children. And this chief is bringing a whale's tooth as a gift. And this particular whale's tooth is actually still in the Britannia. It hangs in our day cabin as a memento of that first visit. And the ceremony of the Yangona is, of course, a very traditional one, which both my father and my grandfather did the same. And you have to drink it straight down. It's a very clean taste, quite sharp. It's quite strong.
The Queen's tour then took her to New Zealand at Christmas time.
This was Government House in Auckland, where we spent Christmas. It was the first time I'd ever been away from home. And the strange thing about it being so hot. Father Christmas dressed rather unsuitably, I thought, for the heat. But it was all very traditional. And carols and presents. And then after all that and going to church, we all went out for a picnic. First time one sees the Maori dancing, it's really very impressive and very, rather fierce, but very impressive. When I go and see the Maoris again, I usually wear my Kiwi cloak, which was given to me all those years ago. And the poi dance from the ladies who sing it so beautifully was always described to me by my parents when they went to New Zealand when I was very small. So this was the first time I'd seen it, and it was something I'd always remembered very much as something that one had been brought up to have been told about.
And then, after 2 weeks in Australia, the Queen opened Parliament in what was then Ceylon.
Opening in Parliament in Ceylon was the third time I'd worn my coronation dress to open Parliament. And as it was covered in beads and I'd been standing in the sun, it became rather like a radiator when I went inside this great open hall, the actual opening of the Parliament itself. Also, I suppose that the complete contrast from Westminster, though it was the same pattern, you had this extraordinary open hall, open to the elements on each side, which gave, certainly for me, it a very different approach to Parliament as I knew it before I went to Ceylon.
They sailed on to Aden, flew to Uganda, and then went on to a rendezvous with Britannia on its maiden voyage.
When we got to the Mediterranean, we joined Britannia for the first time. And the Mediterranean fleet came out to meet us with Lord Mountbatten. And we had a very dramatic meeting in the Mediterranean. And this, of course, was the first time that the yacht had been used. She'd just come out from England with the children. They were extremely polite. I don't think they knew who we were at all. Of course, in those days, it was film that they saw. You know, they watched newsreels, because that's the only thing that there was in those days. So it was quite interesting they knew quite a lot of the places, you know, they watched the places we'd been going to. I suppose one could say that she's made the greatest difference to our ability to be able to do Commonwealth tours, because we've been able to use her as our travelling home, so to speak, and have been able to go to many more places than would ever have been possible without her. And of course, recently, she's had this exciting work in rescuing people from Aden, and she's now still travelling around the world. I think it's her 7th time around the world on her way to New Zealand. And of course, this Commonwealth tour, the first one we did, was the longest one we've ever done. I expect it probably gave people a greater awareness of the Commonwealth in those days than they'd ever seen before. But of course now, we don't, with modern communications and modern aeroplanes, and you don't have to be away for quite so long, and so tours are organised in quite a different way now.
After that first ever Commonwealth tour, there was a memorable homecoming.
Coming up the river to the Pool of London, seeing Tower Bridge opening. And we had the Prime Minister, Sir Winston Churchill, with us. He came up the river with us. And one saw this dirty commercial river as one came up. And he was describing it as the silver thread which runs through the history of Britain. He saw things in a very romantic and glittering way. So perhaps one was looking at it in a rather too mundane way. And then to come up the river in a small boat, you know, with all the sides of the river completely, people on each side. wonderful.
32 years later, from her home at Sandringham, Her Majesty recalls the high points of that journey.
Well, of course, it was very interesting being able to go and see the people who'd come to the coronation, to see them in their own countries, like going to Tonga and visiting the Queen of Tonga in her own country, and going to Fiji. I mean, crossing the Pacific in a ship, which one never does nowadays, was an experience in itself. 3 weeks at sea. I stuck in all the pictures and photographs in my photograph album, which I'd never have done otherwise. And because we started in Bermuda and Jamaica, having flown out there, and then through the Panama Canal and across the Pacific. So it was leisurely, which is why it took so long. And then from Australia to Ceylon, then to Aden, and then an aeroplane to Africa, to Tobruk. Extraordinary to look back on, isn't it?
But even by the end of that first tour by the Queen, the Commonwealth was changing, shedding forever the image of the days of empire. With varying degrees of difficulty, former colonies won or were given their full independence from Britain. With few exceptions, they adopted or were offered the Westminster Constitution.
I think it is interesting when we look back to see how we always assumed that everybody would want the Westminster system of government. I'm not sure we're quite so certain about that now. But when we had independence meetings, then we said, well, of course you all want the Westminster system. And if you don't want the Westminster system, you ought to want the Westminster system. And if you don't ought to want the Westminster system, you're jolly well going to get it anyhow. But how many of them have kept the Westminster system? Very, very few. India, Barbados, Jamaica, one or two of the Caribbeans. And so one has to accept that they've now chosen their own form of government, and that is their affair.
Members of the royal family were always invited to attend these celebrations, though the Queen never went herself, to hear newly independent countries declare their faith in the Commonwealth.
We have applied for membership of the British Commonwealth of Nations, to which Her Majesty graciously welcomes us.
The next decade saw one of the greatest peaceful political transformations of all time. Throughout the vast continent of Africa and the islands of the Caribbean, in parts of Southeast Asia and in the South Pacific, symbols of British rule came down. 17 of these countries, apart from Britain, acknowledged the Queen as head of state. But the majority chose to sever all constitutional links with the Crown, recognizing the Queen as the head of an evolving Commonwealth. Even in the poorest countries, independence celebrations were lavish and costly affairs, demonstrations of a dramatic break with the past. Commonwealth and Queen, former colonies and their new leaders, were adapting to a changed order.
We are no longer citizens of Rome, so to speak. But there are many of us still alive who were once citizens of Rome. I was a British subject. And we share a certain background which makes us understand each other. And she represents that continuity and change, because her role has changed too.
Thus, when the Queen went to India in 1961 for the first time since India had decided to become a republic, she was no longer Empress of India, as Queen Victoria had been, but she was honored as head of the Commonwealth. Despite the glamour, these scenes were not those of the Delhi Durbar of 1911, that apotheosis of empire. Those days were gone forever. So they were in Africa. Many African countries had fought an unremitting battle to win their self-determination from Britain. But in independence, they welcomed the Queen without rancor. And the Queen's regular visits have kept the Commonwealth link alive ever since. As it was on the huge landmass of Africa, so it was in the smallest islands in the Pacific. This was how the Queen was greeted in Tuvalu in 1982. Tuvalu is tiny, its population a mere 8,000. Her Majesty has fond memories of a visit to one of the more remote corners of the Commonwealth.
Well, it was an unusual sensation, I think one could describe it. Because that's all right, because, you know, if you're on the sea, it's fine. And then suddenly, when you get to the shore, all these people wade out and they pick up the boat. And that's okay, because that's just, you know, you're going ashore. And then quite suddenly, you go up a great deal higher onto their shoulders. And you're then a long way up. And all the people carrying the canoe and the ladies dancing and everything are all the civil servants and teachers, normally. They all combined for this particular welcome that we had. And of course, these islands are tiny little places and difficult to get to, so that from our point of view, it was just having Britannia made it possible for me to go there and see all these interesting traditions and take part in the feasts, or at least watch the dancing. They take such an immense amount of trouble over it. It is really very touching. And everybody joins in. I mean, everybody is invited to take part. And I think the Pacific have a particular feeling of friendship. I suppose being islanders, you know, they always welcome strangers. And this was certainly an occasion when we were made very welcome.
Away from exotic canoe trips to Paradise Islands, the Queen meets Commonwealth leaders every 2 years at meetings of all Commonwealth heads of government. The most recent took place in Nassau in the Bahamas last October. "46 of the 49 Commonwealth leaders travelled to Nassau for the 1985 meeting.
Any association that brings countries together, that is a melting pot of ideas, is of relevance not just to India, to the world. One of the biggest advantages of the Commonwealth is that we all speak English. Now that might sound very small or petty, but it isn't. Because when you're talking the same language, you converse. You can talk with each other, you can discuss. You cannot do this easily through an interpreter. So what comes out of the Commonwealth is very significant.
How are you? Very nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Honored to meet you. Thank you.
The Commonwealth has one common language, one common legal background. And so we are able to start from a very strong point of view. And apart from that, we have many, many different shades of color, all of which you learn or have learned to get on well. We have our differences. We resolve those differences by discussing these matters within our own organization.
In the luxurious surroundings of one of the world's most expensive tourist traps, the Commonwealth leaders discussed the widest variety of subjects: world economic problems, feeding the hungry, the security of small states, and the issue which seemed to dominate the meeting, the looming crisis in South Africa. But why do they all go to these meetings? What do they get out of Commonwealth summits?
So you've got here a unique collection of people with all these vastly different experiences who do find themselves able to operate on the basis of consensus. Now that may sound like goo-goo stuff if you leave it at that, but from that basis of togetherness, if you like, there are very concrete and specific things that are able to be done within the Commonwealth for those who most need help.
It's particularly important that the small states in the Commonwealth, it gives us a position and a status that we would not have if we didn't have this. We'd have to look for some other organization to join. And although we don't go to the United Nations as Commonwealth countries, and there are many varying points of view in the United Nations from the different Commonwealth countries, there's no doubt at all that we get a cohesion and an area, a place in which to formulate ideas, to disagree with some of the ideas, but with an understanding of what varying countries are thinking. And I think that in itself is a broadening outlook for us in our character and our thinking.
Prime Ministers do not go to any university to learn to being a Prime Minister. This is the best university anyone can attend as a Prime Minister. Where else in the world do you have this club? It is the only club, a group of people who speak the same language, have the same experience.
It actually draws people to have to look at the real plight of others more intimately. There is a form of emotional blackmail in it, if you like. Because of its intimacy, because of a shared tradition, because of the simple fact that you regard the Queen as somehow the symbolic head of this collective organisation, that some people change their position. It's like the whole concept of consensus. Consensus doesn't mean that you all have to agree and be unanimous. Consensus means that the minority must not bully the majority by having a selfish, small perspective. And it also means that the majority must say to the minority, we respect you, come along a bit more towards us and we'll start moving towards you. Now, that, in the final rational analysis, is tripe, and it doesn't seem to work in the real politic of the world today. But I'm telling you, there is some peculiar sort of, I don't know, it's not magic, but it's something that happens most of the time which makes the thing hang together.
Down at the supermarket, trying hard to win. There's no time to lose your grip, no time to pack it in. But here's a friend to pick you up just when you need it most. Bushell's Instant Coffee. Fresh and roast when you need it most. Bushell's Instant Coffee. Fresh and roast when you need it most. Bushell's Instant Coffee. Fresh and roast when you need it most.
This is the IBM PC, a good computer that costs around $6,500. And this is the Excel PC. It will do all that machine can do, even run the same programs, yet costs less than half the price. I'm Philip Ellis, and if you're wondering why the price difference, call me collect on Auckland 395 344 or at Computer Imports 520 Queen Street. We've got computers for big budgets and computers for small budgets.
Who puts a whole, big, meaty chicken breast fillet, cooked to the Colonel's secret recipe, in a hot sesame seed bun, with crisp lettuce, creamy dressing, and fresh tomato? So good. The new Chicken Fillet Burger, only from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Who else?
It's you for United, and United is for you. You with a smile, I like your style. Haven't seen you for a while. Was you for United, and United is for you. For United, yes, it's you for United. Well, it's you for United.
United, New Zealand's biggest building society.
For those people who suffer from certain nose complaints, we are pleased to announce the complete cure for the common household odor. New, neat and fresh from Arizona. Take one as necessary and immediately administer to all problem areas. The dustbin, the ashtray, the laundry basket. In fact, wherever household odors tend to get up your nose. And you can look forward to up to 4 weeks of fresh air. Neat and fresh from Arizona. The complete cure for the common odor.
Snip, snip, pick up Whatties, frozen peas. Snip, snip, snip the coupon off to save 30 cents on Whatties, fresher, frozen vegetables. Do it now. Snip, snip, pick up Whatties, frozen peas. Snip, snip, snip the coupon off to save 30 cents on Whatties, fresher, slip.
You will observe the exquisite bone structure.
Is that thing safe?
Madam, that thing has been standing for centuries.
So's this tea by taste of it.
Tea? Come in here, I'll be mummy. Stop messing about. I've got the PG tips in here.
In tea bags or loose in packets, PG Tips, the tea you can really taste.
Oh, the quality.
Terrific.
Yeah, I've got a bone to pick with you lot.
Much of the credit for the fact that this loose association of states does manage to hang together, despite its periodic crises, has been put down to the personality of the Queen.
That's very nice to see you. You know she's got a baby. How long is it since you've been in these parts?
My last visit was 75 to Jamaica, Kingston.
Well, I was here in 77 and in the Bahamas. And I was in Canada. Well, I opened Parliament in Canada, and then I came here, opened Parliament, and then in the Virgin Islands, and then in Antigua, then in Barbados, and then I flew home by Concorde, which was the only way I could get home in time to open Parliament in London. And 4 hours sleep. I opened it at 5 o'clock in the morning. Which was a very strange, experience. But that was the Jubilee tour, you know. This is what's so interesting, I think, about the Commonwealth. It brings together all climates and all parts of the world. You know, everybody has got a different viewpoint and a different part of the world.
Over the years, Commonwealth meetings have developed a character unique among large international gatherings. A mirror of the informality of these occasions is the traditional family photograph taken at all Commonwealth summits. The atmosphere may be that of a family, but as an institution, the Commonwealth lacks logic. It has no real power. Unlike countries in the common market or in NATO, it can aspire to no common policy. Its strength lies in its diversity and its potential to reconcile differences. It's also managed to so order its affairs that even its smallest states feel a part of the association.
But there's a sense of fairness about the manner in which the meetings are conducted, the Queen's presence. We're all treated equally. No one gets any favors, and no one gets to stand on the back of the line. We're all together. And it's that degree of fairness that makes it what it is. And if that were removed or if that were changed, then it would cease to exist because it would have no value.
The Queen's contribution to these Commonwealth meetings is not merely social. She fulfills one of her more important functions as head of the Commonwealth, that of meeting all the heads of government and discussing the problems of their individual countries.
We were all so shy.
The interesting thing is, as we have a Commonwealth conference, the Queen actually does not attend either the opening or any sessions, and yet she is very much there because the most important thing to many of the representatives here is the audience which each of them goes and has with the Queen during the course of the conference. And the most important event is when we all get together, when the Queen gives a dinner in honour of all heads of government. And I think without that, a close link with her, without the feeling that when each Prime Minister or President goes into the Queen, that she knows their problems, has known them over many, many years, that she's interested, that she knows them, not only their national problems, she knows them in relation to those in other countries of the Commonwealth.
At the 1985 meeting in Nassau, for 3 days, the Queen never left the royal yacht.
I think she's taking a little jaunt out in the Bahamas, but she's really working, because almost every half hour she's seeing a head of state in the 3 days that we're there. And she is discussing things that count. She isn't talking about the weather and the swimming and the tourism.
Your Majesty, the Prime Minister of Dominica.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. You let come.
It's obvious that she's not just talking palliatives. She's interested, definitely interested, in what is happening in each of those countries. Then we spoke about South Africa. She doesn't give any opinions and try to dictate policies or try to make people's minds up for them. But obviously she was talking about it and seeing that there were different points of view emerging from different parts of the Commonwealth, and realizing it was an important issue to be decided by us sitting there and understanding each other. And her anxiety that it should be something that we arrive at a consensus with all the countries being satisfied.
Your Majesty, the Prime Minister of India.
Good morning.
Actually, somehow we started about half an hour late.
I imagine it's quite difficult with so many people, isn't it,
to just get
actually,
all the...
Yes. And this time it was
Ministers.
the world, was it, that was being
just
discussed?
in general. The Queen has a very major role as a sort of key figure that holds and binds the Commonwealth together. A figure that everyone looks towards as the strength of the Commonwealth. And she plays that role very well.
It's a very good way of getting to know everybody. Of course, the numbers have increased tremendously since the first meetings. It's got progressively fuller as more members join, but it's very interesting, and I think it certainly gives me a very useful chance to talk to all the heads of government or their representatives, just them and me, so to speak, with nobody else listening, which is very useful.
Your Majesty, the Prime Minister of Fiji.
I'm very glad to see you again. Have you been listening to the discussions today?
I left. I didn't attend this afternoon because it started late.
Perhaps you'd like to come through and we can talk about Fiji.
The Queen has not only a uniting role, but I think she's the most knowledgeable person about the Commonwealth that I've ever come across. One has to be very careful in discussing Commonwealth affairs with her. If you don't know what you're talking about, she'll soon let you know that you're not fully versed in what you're talking about, because she's so knowledgeable.
Your Majesty, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Good evening, First.
Good evening, Your Majesty.
You've had a very long day.
It ran over just a little bit today.
But you started it this morning, did you?
Yes, yes, with the world.
The world.
All in 20 minutes.
Gracious.
And then, 20 minutes to open it with, and then other people also were quite long, because when you make a contribution, they obviously wanted to say something about most things.
Yes.
But then we're on to South Africa now, and it started
yes.
with Kenneth Kaunda.
Yes, he told me he was going to talk
Mr.
about
Hawke.
that. Well, do come in.
Thank you.
Every prime minister, every president, and I've been up against some pretty radical ones, militant ones that you might think probably don't care too much for this whole monarchical thing. I have never met a Commonwealth president or prime minister who doesn't place maximum value and importance and often with a lot of affection, on those 15, 20 minutes when they can sit down with the Queen and talk about their countries, their problems, because she knows them very well, and the issues before them at the meeting.
In 1979, the Queen, accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh and Prince Andrew, went to Lusaka at one of the most testing times for the Commonwealth. She was given a warm welcome because Commonwealth leaders were meeting in Zambia at the height of a war in neighboring Rhodesia. And some in Britain felt that with bombs going off in Lusaka, the Queen might be in danger. But Her Majesty's personal decision to go was rewarded with tremendous enthusiasm. And the Queen played a crucial role behind the scenes in the outcome of the Lusaka summit.
This conference you're referring to was fought very hard indeed against it being held at that particular point in time in Zambia, especially the right-wing members of the British press. The Queen took a personal decision to come out in spite of that. When she came here, she found a very tense situation. It's primarily due to her own personal involvement in this that tempers began to cool down.
Behind the jollity of the community singing, the contentious issue of Rhodesian independence at the Lusaka summit cast a shadow over the meeting and threatened to break up the Commonwealth.
One Zambia! One Zambia!
Britain was in the dock, and Commonwealth leaders were demanding that British interests should not take precedence over the majority Commonwealth view.
Yes, this is a development which has taken place as the Commonwealth has expanded, I think. I mean, when I first began, there were 9 prime ministers who attended the Commonwealth Prime Ministers' Conference. Now there are 49. It's become a huge international organization. And so I think it's natural. After all, we were the head of the Commonwealth. We are the wealthiest member of the Commonwealth. We are, I suppose, the member of the Commonwealth with more influence in international affairs than any other. And so I think it's natural that they should turn to us and sometimes require from us more than we can give.
In Singapore in 1971, the Commonwealth demanded from Britain a commitment not to resume arms sales to South Africa. The then Prime Minister Edward Heath was irritated at this interference in Britain's affairs.
Of course, politicians have to restrain their irritation if that's what they feel. And I think from the diplomatic point of view, it's very important that Britain should no longer attempt to show that it's, quotes, giving leadership quotes or trying to put them, the other members of the Commonwealth, into a particular position. I think we have, in the last 20 years, gone a long way to show that Britain is a member of the Commonwealth, just like all the other members.
The concern at the Jubilee meeting in 1977 was whether President Idi Amin, the Ugandan despot, would cause embarrassment by turning up in London. It begged the question whether the Commonwealth is ever completely candid about repression and brutality in its own ranks.
South Africa left the Commonwealth because it felt it could not stand the criticism that was made of its policies in relation to apartheid. Amin, in 1977, General Amin didn't come to the Commonwealth Conference in 1977 because he knew that what he was doing, the brutality in Uganda at the time was such that he would have been subjected to the most severe criticism. Now, as to candor, the answer is yes. I know of no other body, except perhaps the meetings of the Summit 7, the 7 industrialized nations, where speech is so free, so easy, where people do not prepare written texts beforehand.
And Mr. Callaghan's Foreign Secretary remembers one example of Commonwealth plain speaking, a stand-up row with the Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere over Rhodesia, and in the presence of the then American Secretary of State.
Julius at that time was wanting to integrate the police force in a period of elections in Rhodesia prior to independence, and we'd already agreed to bring the Patriotic Front into the armed forces. And I said, you simply cannot do it in the police. We had one hell of a row in front of Cyrus Vance in his office in Dar es Salaam. And this went on, back and fro, intellectual arguments. And eventually, Julius suddenly creased his face with smiles, and he said, you've convinced me. He said, okay, I agree. And I remember Cy Vance was absolutely amazed by this whole relationship, a real ding-dong row, all in English, between this young foreign secretary and the most respected president. But it is a relationship that could only occur, I think, within the sort of strangeness of the Commonwealth relationships.
In Nassau in 1985, Britain was in the Commonwealth dock again. The subject was South Africa. The issue, whether the Commonwealth should take a collective decision to impose economic sanctions to show its displeasure at apartheid. Britain was against the idea, but the debate was frank and uninhibited.
I think it'd be a pity if you couldn't say exactly what you thought without it being held against you. I think we do say exactly what we think, and sometimes it is a little bit sharp.
I am for open discussion and open criticism. I mean, the fact that somebody is my friend doesn't mean that he can do something wrong, and I would say, well, that's good because he is my friend. I would like to be able to say that it is bad, whether it is done by a friend or foe.
Each country is different. I'm saying that even among ourselves in the Caribbean, each country has a different point of view. I'm quite sure that we all of us taking just a little varied point of view even on the South Africa thing. Though I think that it's this united feeling in that everybody is against, bitterly against apartheid. There's no exception in that respect. But how do you approach it? How do you go to it? How far must you go? How much can you say about it? How much can you do? Each country, I think, has a varying point of view. And I think that's what's so healthy about the Commonwealth.
So, for 2 days, in the splendid isolation of Lyford Quay outside Nassau, the majority of Commonwealth countries sought to convince Mrs. Thatcher that sanctions was the only message Pretoria would understand. The president of Zambia spoke for the Commonwealth majority.
We all know that an explosion is on the horizon. We also know that the Commonwealth is one of those international organizations that might do something to avert that explosion.
Before their private sessions in Lyford Quay, Commonwealth leaders had sounded uncompromising on the issue of economic sanctions. But away from the formality of the conference hall and in the relaxed atmosphere of their weekend retreat, they arrived at a consensus late on Sunday night. Even so, differences remained on who gave ground and how much.
We were able to persuade them that our view really was basically the right one, but then we had to do 1 or 2 modifications in order to meet their viewpoint. But those were small compared with the essential rightness of one's case that we did argue very, very vigorously and very, very passionately.
An absence of consensus would have been a cause for celebration in Pretoria. If we'd had a Commonwealth communique and a British caveat or dissent, a different statement, they would still be popping the champagne in Pretoria, I think. And so it was important that we get a common position, and we did, and we got that common position because of 2 things. Because, if you like, of the persistence and strength of argument and principle that was put on the one hand, and on Mrs. Thatcher's part, I believe, with respect to her, a preparedness to recognise that position and to go further than she would otherwise have done if, for instance, she'd been drafting the Commonwealth position.
So, after all the tough talking in public, Commonwealth leaders left Nassau, having patched up in private an apparently feeble compromise. Send a group of eminent persons on a fact-finding mission to South Africa. The announcement was hailed by the Commonwealth Secretary-General, Sonny Ramphel, as an example of Commonwealth flexibility. But what of the role of the Queen? Had her influence been felt? Did she bang heads together?
Well, you know, the most effective banging of heads is when you don't know that it's happening. And that influence was at work in Nassau. Yes, of course. but in just that way, with people knowing, sensing that the Queen was really urging them in that direction and saying, come on now, you can't allow this to fail. Yes, that happened at Nassau. I hope it will always happen. We need it to happen. We need the head of the Commonwealth from time to time to call us all, not just to order, but to ambition.
No one quarrels with that, but the Queen's visit to Bangladesh in 1983 raised the question of how far she should involve herself in Commonwealth affairs. This is what the Queen said about poverty in Bangladesh.
When I went to Dhaka for the second time, I went to see one of these health centers where they find these very starving children suffering from malnutrition, basically because the mothers haven't got enough to eat themselves either. And when you see these children for the first time, really, it's quite astonishing that they will ever survive. But the remarkable thing was that some of the children that I saw who were really, very, very ill, when my daughter went back 2 years later, they were quite recovered, and they'd been saved by this health center here.
From Dhaka, Her Majesty went on to Delhi, where the Commonwealth meeting was being hosted by the Indian Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi. The Queen's visit to Bangladesh and her discussions with Mrs. Gandhi about poverty on the subcontinent were later reflected in her Christmas broadcast in which Mrs. Gandhi appeared, and in the Queen's pointed references to poverty.
The greatest problem in the world today remains the gap between rich and poor countries. And we shall not begin to close this gap until we hear less about nationalism and more about interdependence. One of the main aims of the Commonwealth is to make an effective contribution towards redressing the economic balance between nations.
The Queen's broadcast raised the question in some quarters about who had advised her.
In the Christmas broadcast of 1983, I contend that as the statements which Her Majesty was making were essentially political statements, they were statements which could only be made upon responsible advice. And my complaint was that whether advice had or had not been given, ministers had been guilty of giving the sovereign bad advice. They had given her bad advice if those were the words which they advised her to speak. They had been giving her bad advice if they had said to her, ma'am, we are not going to advise you, because it was their duty, if something of political content was to be said, to offer collective ministerial advice. I cannot criticize the sovereign. I cannot criticize the sovereign not merely personally, because of a personal loyalty which a subject owes to the sovereign, but also I cannot criticize her constitutionally, because unless I'm criticizing something purely personal, which I would not dream of, I must be criticizing her ministers.
I would say that that's total rubbish, actually. I think in this particular instance, it's one of the rare occasions on which the Queen can act, and there are others, without advice from responsible ministers at all. So I would totally disagree with Mr. Enoch Powell on that point, and I did in fact say so in a sharp letter in the Times at the time.
But Lord Blake's letter to the Times did not satisfy those who felt the Queen's message had been too overtly political. Some papers said the Queen had gone too far and supported Mr. Powell's view. But had the Queen really strayed into the political arena?
Well, I don't think she had. Political is a difficult word to define. If she had strayed into the area of positively supporting one political party in Britain against another, or one political party in this or that Commonwealth state against another, that's rather a different thing, and that I think would be an unwise thing to have done. But I don't think she did do that. Her expressions, what she said was one of were views which a great many people would share about a greater unity, and she does believe she's very anti-racist, one of the features of the Queen, very anti-racist and very pro the Commonwealth, partly because it does cover a multitude of races. And I think what she was saying, though it may have annoyed some people, would be only a small minority, and it doesn't tie up with any straight political party divides, which I do think royalty obviously should avoid.
People like me like Greggs.
It's the world's best bees.
People like me like Greggs.
It's the tumble roasting.
People like me like Greggs.
It's red ribbon roast people like the most.
People like me like Greggs.
Drink it black, drink it white. The coffee people like you like. The taste New Zealand likes the most. Our favorite Greggs red ribbon roast.
Natural gas. No other energy is more effective. Boosting productivity in our business. Heating homes at the touch of a button. Instant control for perfect results. And hot water whenever it's needed. What's more, natural gas is the best value in fuel available today.
It's the warm touch, natural gas.
Pain. When it seems locked in for the day, you need a painkiller that gives relief, even in severe headaches. Nurofen contains only ibuprofen, a safer, more effective alternative to aspirin and paracetamol. A breakthrough in pain relief because it's now available without prescription. Ask your pharmacist for Nurofen. It's easy to swallow and fast-acting. Nurofen, for the gentle relief of locked-in pain.
Adam and Eve used to get on well, but Eve ribbed Adam about his smell. So a snake said, Adam, splash this on. And autumn came and their leaves were gone. Napoleon longed to be big and grand, so he thought he'd give his side a hand. Josephine said,
Bonnie, you're real cute, but don't get caught short without your bro.
Support our games team with Brute 33. Over $15,000 worth of Sony Walkmans, Adidas tracksuits, Fabergé sports bags, and products to be won. Back 'em with Brute.
What kind of day is your hair having? Will it need a light shampoo or a really deep cleaning?
Sometimes you need a little finesse, sometimes you need a lot.
Now there's Finesse shampoo, specially formulated to clean deeply on days when you need it, and gently on the days you don't, without drying, without over-cleaning. And introducing new Finesse mousse with luminizers for extra shine and control.
It's everybody's cup of tea. You've got a cold. You're feeling miserable. Now there's new Benylin cold and flu tablets. Benylin tablets help clear your head, unblock your nose, even relieve aches and pains, but they won't make you drowsy. Benylin cold and flu tablets. They'll keep you in the swing of things.
Yeah, it's just another day with nothing much to do.
Park Davis makes Myadec multivitamins with a range of vitamins and minerals to help you keep up if your diet is inadequate. So take Myadec once a day. Myadec.
Open House, a new drama series reflecting the times we live and how people cope.
We've got a bit of a drama here.
Open House starts Wednesday, 7:30 on 1.
Politics of a more controversial sort seemed impossible to avoid when the Queen sailed into Grenada on one leg of her 1985 Caribbean tour. The issue was of major constitutional importance. Had Her Majesty, as Grenada's head of state, been informed in advance about the military invasion of the island 2 years earlier? Had the Queen of Grenada been told about the action of a foreign power? Stepping ashore in Grenada, the Queen was met by her representative, the Governor-General Sir Paul Scoon, around whom much of the controversy at the time centred, and Herbert Blaise, who became Prime Minister in elections after the invasion. Hundreds of Grenadians filled the streets to welcome the Queen.
Welcome to Grenada. Welcome.
But many of these same people had also welcomed the Americans when they occupied the island 2 years before. The sight of Britannia, quietly at anchor in St. George's Harbour, betrayed nothing of the traumatic upheaval the island had recently undergone. Grenada had become independent and joined the Commonwealth in 1974. 5 years later, a coup overthrew the elected Prime Minister, and a People's Revolutionary Government was formed under Maurice Bishop. His government announced that the Queen was still head of state, but Bishop made it clear he didn't envisage Westminster-style elections. In September '83, the more radical members of Bishop's party claimed he was making overtures to the Americans, put him in jail and killed him. At the request of some Eastern Caribbean countries, President Reagan sent troops to the island. Should the Queen's representative have informed Her Majesty about the invasion?
No, I didn't think at that point it was necessary. It is my duty, after all, to see that there is a government in place. I don't inform the Queen when elections are being called. I mean, this is a normal thing, because the Governor-General is, the Queen, you see, in the Constitution, has executive power. But the day-to-day running of the government is done by ministers, etc. So when there are no ministers to do it, in other words, when there is no government, it's the Governor-General's responsibility to see that, that the country keeps going. Okay.
My government will
In Grenada, the Queen opened a new session of Parliament, making only the most formal reference to the island's security.
My government will protect the nation's security and will give further support to the Royal Grenada Police Force. Steps will be taken to encourage the growth of a healthy relationship between the police and the community at large. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament, I declare this special session of the Third Parliament open, and I pray God's blessing on your deliberations.
The ceremony of the opening of Parliament in Grenada is a stark contrast to the reality of life for the majority of the island's 113,000 people. Grenada is one of the poorer members of the Commonwealth. The mainstay of the economy is agriculture. It has little industry to speak of, and there is real poverty. Countries like Grenada pose a challenge to the Commonwealth concept of economic assistance. 45 of its 49 members are classified as developing countries. The Commonwealth Secretariat, working from the splendour of Marlborough House given to it by the Queen, assesses the needs of poorer Commonwealth countries.
We have our quota of work to do in the Commonwealth on the poverty front, on supplementing skills, on helping countries, helping governments who feel the weight of constraints from poverty. And we have a wonderful mechanism in the Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation. A government may find a sudden need for an agronomist. Can you have someone who understands the situation of the country, our soils and so on? And can we have them yesterday?
So this type of the topography does exist in Antigua at many locations. So this is the kind of a demonstration project which shows how to utilize the rain catchment which can be developed at the hillside.
And we manage, may not be yesterday, but it's not far from tomorrow. And in this way, Commonwealth skills are moved around, helping Commonwealth countries, not at the highest salaries paid by the international community, at more moderate levels with contribution, involvement, a part of the role that the expert is playing.
Hello,
To make good its pledge of partnership in action, the Commonwealth pays for a variety of educational projects. In the Caribbean, small islands are linked by satellite for distance teaching.
The problem was trying to choose which colour to match which card. That was a problem I had.
In Tanzania, members of the African National Congress who have fled South Africa and sought sanctuary across the border are given some basic education. For many of these refugees, it's the first such opportunity they've ever had. This project, too, is funded by the Commonwealth. Youth projects throughout the world have been set up to promote the Commonwealth spirit. And the Commonwealth also spends money on human rights, women's affairs and science. All Commonwealth countries contribute to these schemes on the basis that the richest countries pay the most. Britain contributes 30% to the overall Commonwealth funding. Yet it's often debated whether Britain's main commitment is not now elsewhere.
Well, I think in this very dangerous world, one has to put NATO first, because security is the first duty of any government, and NATO is the only body which can secure it. I suppose economically now, you would have to put Europe next, because it is our big market which is at our disposal. But I don't like putting the Commonwealth third, so to speak, or last. And it's a different sort of body. As you said earlier, it isn't an economic bloc, it's not a military alliance, it's none of these things. It is an association of friendly countries. I come back to that word again and again, and that is extremely valuable when you're considering Britain's place on the international stage.
Britain, after all, was dominant when Britain was a colonial power. And then we've gradually moved into a phase in which independent countries have got their own interests, but they still look to Britain to look after their own interests, and they think Britain should ignore the interests of the British people. This is understandable, I think, psychologically, for the historical background. But we've gradually moved into a stage in which I think we have been able to explain, without causing great friction, that Britain too has her interests, and that in the modern world those interests economically lie with the European community, and militarily and diplomatically lie with NATO.
We cannot pursue our own economic well-being in isolation from what is happening in the Third World or elsewhere. Now, here is the Commonwealth, a bridge, a unique bridge, of which there is nothing else like it, which brings together people from developing and developed countries, speaking the same language, owing, in many cases, allegiance to the same institutions. For heaven's sake, let us not only preserve it, but let it evolve into something that will serve the needs of the millions of people who live within it better than it does today.
In that evolution of the Commonwealth, the Queen's role will continue to be crucial. Within 3 months of her return from the Caribbean, the Queen was off again to Australia and New Zealand, with a 5-day visit to the mountain kingdom of Nepal. Before that, the Queen was the guest of the Australian High Commission in London.
You know Nepal, man? I've been there before, yes, but 25 years ago. I think it's a lot of fun going back to places that one hasn't been for a long time. The only trouble is that it then catches one out, because one realises how old one is, you know. Most people say, sometimes say, well, I know you.
The Queen had set out on her tour in a cheerful mood. But soon after her arrival in New Zealand, there was an unpleasant surprise. On her very first day, eggs were thrown at the Queen. And throughout the visit, there were small, noisy groups protesting on behalf of the Maoris. Although from the majority of the Maoris, the traditional greeting was as warm as ever. The demonstrations embarrassed the New Zealand government, but the Prime Minister said they were small, their importance had been exaggerated, and the Queen was always welcome in New Zealand. From there, the Queen went on to Australia. On her drive through the streets of Sydney, the majority of those who came out to see her were school children. Although the Queen did appear to recognize some old friends. In Australia too, there were demonstrations. Not always aimed at the Queen herself, these could become a serious hazard to future royal tours. The presence of the Queen may become the focus for any number of protest groups, and the level of security needed could change forever, the informality that has made the royal visits what they are. But demonstrations are unlikely to shake the Queen's faith in the Commonwealth.
I think the Queen has had a quite unique experience of growing up with the Commonwealth, of not coming to it full-blown, of not coming to it halfway through, of seeing it evolve, of seeing it come through some very difficult times, some difficult patches, of seeing confidence in it grow within itself, within its member countries, and I think as well, seeing that confidence grow within the world community. And I think the Queen recognizes that we're living in a world of great variety, and yet somehow we have to live together, and the Commonwealth has a chance of being a model that can give the world some confidence and some faith in the future.
Haji Abdul Karim Karuma.
The role of the head of the Commonwealth has been created by the Queen. It could have been purely ceremonial and symbolic, but the Queen has made it into a real job, and she's done it in the way she knows best, by going out, meeting the people, and by constantly preaching the virtues of the Commonwealth.
Well, she's the sort of, she's a bit of glue somehow that manages to permeate through the institutions of it. She does more than people think, and yet she does less than some assume. She does more in a personal sense. She actually speaks with all Commonwealth leaders. She has a quiet, fairly pervasive presence at social functions. She is intelligent and acute when she speaks with Commonwealth leaders, to my judgment, and yet when it comes to a functional role, it is not there. And she is the head of the Commonwealth because she has been careful not to exercise that functional role which would be destructive of the bond. And it is, I suppose, to some extent a matter of worry, because clearly her personality is fundamental to this. It may be that a successor will have just as much success as she has in achieving that respect, in preserving that status. That is yet to be seen, of course.
That uncertain future also concerns the Queen. And that's why, on her last Caribbean tour, the emphasis was firmly on meeting the young. As more and more countries become increasingly preoccupied with the problems of their own development, the Commonwealth idea will only survive if it captures the imagination of the next generation.
I believe that as the Commonwealth countries come together, and she's the head of the Commonwealth, and Barbados is in the Commonwealth, that I believe she is our Queen also. So that puts her as she wears the crown in England, she wears it for Barbados also.
Well, I think in a way it's quite important for the next generation. It's quite important for them to see the head of the Commonwealth and to know that, you know, that there is a human being, a person around. And this occasion in Barbados was particularly well done and very jolly. And of course, in the Caribbean this last time, we did concentrate very much on the children. I think these pictures, and perhaps the pictures that have been shown, give quite a good idea of how we travel around in the world and how much enjoyment we get out of it, as well as, I hope, giving enjoyment to other people. The difference in colour, race and creed is one of its strengths, really, that it is this enormous number of countries who all have very many of the same traditions and speak the same language and mostly all get on very well together.
and that program celebrated the Queen's 60th birthday. Well, next week we have an old favourite in a new time slot.
Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree.
Didn't you know your partner is the most famous policeman in all of Europe?
You fell for that handsome, charming bitch.
Have this little water chest, Jean-Claude.
I think you're actually jealous.
You sure you don't want to change your mind? I'm just gonna stay in the box till everybody leaves, then I'll find out what's going on.
Magnum PI, Monday 7:30 on 1.
There's certainly some lovely insights into the Queen's personality in that program celebrating her 60th birthday. We have a few moments in hand before cheers, so a couple of items of special interest. Firstly, we have some ice dancing. The beautiful Shepherd song sung by Kiri Te Kanawa is used to accompany the legendary Torval and Dean. And then we'll have the song currently in the New Zealand Top 10, which is the theme for our America's Cup Challenge. It's called Sailing Away. Well, if you're still trying to identify all the stars, and good on you, and if your list is nearly 60 strong, then you're getting close. So I hope you enjoyed this little bonus before cheers.
Here we come and we are sailing.
Here we come, we're on our way.
In a boat just called New Zealand. We're together, that's our way.
One people on the water.
One people on the land.
It's New Zealand all together.
Kiwis working hand in hand. Sailing away, sailing away. New Zealand can do it. Take it away.
And our pride is in New Zealand.
And our pride is in the race. We're together as one people in the challenge that we face.